What's shaking world? Minasan konnichiwa. Welcome to the Layup Line with Nick Fazekas and John Ramey. I'm Ramey. Risk of loss is why we are all here. Risk of loss is why the Nevada overtime win over Southern Illinois was so breathtaking. Corey Camper Jr.'s three-pointer in the final seconds forced the extra period, answering the prayers of more than 7,000 inside Lawler Event Center and shattering the Salukis' chances at a regulation win. That singular moment, the event within the universe of one given game, is the point from which competitive sport derives all its power. When the ball left Camper's hands, no one knew if Southern Illinois would upset Nevada on its home floor or if the Wolfpack had miraculously escaped into overtime. Now, for some of us, the uncertainty of the outcome and the path to it is sufficiently compelling, and we simply love the drama of college basketball enough to want more. And for some of us, we need external risk enhancers like wagers, some extra interest in the outcome. If Wednesday night found you without deep passion for either the Wolfpack or the Salukis, a little action on the game probably made your evening a little more vivid, perhaps even more memorable. For most of us, this represents good, clean fun. For college and professional sports, gambling is a $150 billion industry. And after a century of chastity, they want their cut. But now, with twin insider gambling scandals surfacing in the NBA and Major League Baseball, how at risk is the competitive integrity of sport in this new era of legalized, nationwide, phone-based betting? The Layup Line starts now.
The following segment is sponsored by Northern Nevada Toyota Dealers.
Back on the Layup Line, Ramey and Fazekas, and what a win for the Wolfpack over Southern Illinois in one overtime. Nick, I mean, should we be worried? Should we be thrilled? Give me your three big thoughts on this 86-81 win.
I believe Johnny should be thrilled. I think it's another big win for the Pack. I think it's another gutsy win that has kind of proven that this team has the toughness, kind of has the tenacity to be able to get the job done when the game's on the line. And I think that's one thing that kind of shows in great teams, especially all the teams that I've ever played on. It very much proves that teams that can get it done late in games, make those critical decisions, are definitely teams that need to be reckoned with at some point late in the season. But I think another great bullet point is the toughness of this team. This team they had that kind of just grit and toughness. They buckle down on defense. They get timely stops. They get stops when they need them. And then, yeah, offensively, I think, as we said kind of last week, it just is it's a work in progress. But you're seeing that team that is continuing to grow. And I think all Pack fans should be really thrilled with where they're standing at right now.
Okay, so what does it mean that Nevada was at their best when the game was in the balance, right? They were behind for long stretches in the ball game. They didn't shoot all that well, but when it came time to hit a three to force the overtime, Corey Camper Jr. did it. And then in the overtime, they were the better free throw shooting team. Like, you mentioned toughness, but is that a thing that a team will recognize in itself, especially this early in the year?
I believe so. I mean, maybe not this early in the year, but it's definitely something that you'd be able to hang your hat on. And I think that it just builds confidence. It kind of builds perseverance as the season progresses. It's not even probably something that Coach Alfred can write on the board or, do anything like that. But it's just, it's that belief that we've been in this position, in game 22, when you've been in this position, you can get back and do it again. So I just like the perseverance and grit that this team has. And like you said, big shots down the stretch, big threes down the stretch. And even after the poor shooting performance all night long, they were able to kind of step up to the free throw line and also make that big hammer play three in the corner to tie that thing up to get it into overtime. So I like that. And it's really, really intriguing for this team.
You told me during the game, coming down the stretch in the second half when it was back and forth, that you were like, let's get Tayshaun Comer a shot. Now, Comer was Nevada's leading scorer. He was the leading scorer in the game with 23 points. Was that because you thought Comer had the hot hand, or has Tayshaun already emerged in your eyes as the guy who needs the ball in a close game down the stretch?
I think mostly I believe that he needs the ball closely. I like his decision making. I like the way he looks confident when he's shooting the ball. He doesn't look scared of the big moments. So that's why I did text you and tell you that I thought it was a good idea. They ran that play for Comer. He hit that sort of off the elbow jumper to take it maybe down to one or up one, whatever it was. And then I thought Coach Alford should have went right back to that same play. Unfortunately, they didn't. I mean, they got the win. It wasn't maybe exactly how you drew it up, but Tayshaun, to me, has emerged as that guy that you want the ball in his hands late. He makes great decisions, but more so, I like the fact when he's shooting the ball in and around that sort of elbow area where he looks to be pretty automatic, especially late in games.
All right, let's talk about Elijah Price. He's going to be the guy that we talk about the most because you and I fell in love with him when he was competing against Nevada last year for Fresno State in that Mountain West tournament game. He ends up with 17 points and 19 rebounds, and our colleague Chris Murray pointed out that 19 rebounds was the most of any Wolfpack player since like 2016. What does 19 rebounds say to you? You pulled a few boards in your day, and Nevada did win the rebounding battle 52-49 in this game. Like, that's just a huge number.
It's a huge number. 19 rebounds is, I mean, is no way to chop it up where it's, I mean, it's a big game, especially rebounding-wise. But you watch the game, and, you know, everyone's always focused on the shooting and watching the ball go in and this and that. But for guys like myself, there's definitely times where I'm watching Elijah and I'm paying attention to what Elijah's doing and trying to find his angles, and he's watching which side the ball's coming off of. But he is a handful for whoever is blocking him out all night long. I mean, he goes in for every single offensive rebounds. And it's funny because as a good rebounder myself, there's times where you didn't go your way, and you kind of see like a little bit of a deflation when it kind of doesn't go his way. But he's not quitting. He's not giving up on the play. And 19 rebounds is definitely a testament to that, because there's not too many guys in the whole country that can get 19 rebounds even in an overtime game. And Elijah seems to make it look easy when he's out there doing it.
Okay, so the Wolfpack now, 2 games in a row, have had to have a stop at the end of regulation against Southern Illinois. It was to force the overtime because they got the tying shot with just under 20 seconds to go. They had to get a stop to force the extra period. And the game before that, a 78-77 win over Pacific at home, they had to get a stop in the final seconds as the game ended just to secure that 1-point win. What does it mean for a team when their defense is as clutch as their offense in those waning moments?
Well, to me, it's always been probably easier to be clutch on defense. You can get some things to go your way. When it comes down to offense, right, you got to have a guy that actually makes a shot. You're kind of more in charge of getting the right guy, the right look. But I think being able to hang your hat on being a defensive team that can really get timely stops, I think it's huge. I think there's definitely times throughout the game where it might show up more so in the end of the game that they got the stop, they got the win. But even when you're going on a 6-0 run against you or an 8-0 run, you're able to get that stop, you're able to go down and kind of stop that run. That's what really kind of separates teams. And I know some of the teams that I played on in Nevada, we were really, really good at that, about getting runs stopped, getting to a guy or getting a stop, and then going down and getting a shot for a guy that we knew could get a bucket. And I feel like Nevada is kind of morphing or kind of forming into kind of that team that they're like, look, we need a stop, we need a bucket, and then they're able to kind of go down and execute that. So that's very encouraging as I watch the games, and I just think it's exciting for Pac fans for sure.
All right, Nick Fazekas, we're going to talk to Joe Flores, who is the Senior Associate AD for the Nevada Wolfpack Compliance Services. He's also my sports ethics and law professor. He's also an attorney, and we're going to talk about gambling in sports, in pro and college sports, in the next segment. But I just want to know, what was your experience with kind of the culture of gambling in professional sports as you experienced it as a professional athlete?
Well, I just think it's an odd place that professional gambling or sports betting is with professional sports or even college sports at this point. I do have an experience that I'd like to touch on, you know, as we get further along, but it's just a spot that just feels very strange and very uneasy, I would say, from a fan's perspective. Now that I'm no longer playing, I've got friends in around town that will bet on games, won't bet on games, and now there's all this big conspiracy as things come out. Do people wonder if this thing has been fixed the entire time? Which I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, John, with you. But yes, there are some experiences and there are some things that, you know, need to get cleaned up. Otherwise, this thing just maybe gets uglier and uglier. All
right. You heard it from Nick Fazekas. We're going to talk more to Nick about that coming up. But next, we'll talk to Joe Flores, about gambling in sports on the Layup Line. Back on the Layup Line, and we are joined right now by Joe Flores. He is Senior Associate Athletics Director at the University of Nevada. He handles compliance services. He's also an attorney. He's also my sports ethics and law professor. And 2 weeks ago, the lecture was about gambling and sports. That's where I got the number $150 billion industry from the earlier segment. Tell me about that, $150 billion. That was basically all the sports saying we should be getting a cut of that, and that has been the new era, right?
Yeah, and that's actually a dated number. That 150 came out as a result of a NCAA versus Murphy case that was a number of years ago, where at the time most states could not do any form of legalized gambling. It was limited to Nevada. And there was a push to try to formalize an effort to legalize that in other states. The Supreme Court looked at it and ultimately allowed other states to gamble. But the information that came out from that case was that this is a $150 billion industry. And that perked up a lot of ears, whether it was TV partners, whether it was professional leagues. This was a $150 billion industry that they had no stakes in at that particular point in time. So that really started to open up the door a little bit at a time where we'd been very much anti-gambling to maybe get involved in that space a little bit and get their cut.
So one of your duties is communicating to staff and student athletes at Nevada about what is allowed, what isn't allowed, and what they need to be aware of. And that is changing with regard to what is allowed and what is not allowed for student athletes. So where are we right now? In fact, I feel like at the start of this month, there was a deadline, and then it got moved because somebody thought maybe it's not a great idea to expand what is legal.
So we're in a little bit of a middle pattern right now. So historically, the NCAA has been very, very clear. Any NCAA-sponsored sport, whether it's baseball, basketball, to some obscure sports like bowling or equestrian, you can't bet on that sport if you're going to be a collegiate athlete, if you're going to be in athletics, whether it's as an administrator such as myself, or whether you're Steve Alford as a head coach.
And it doesn't matter if it's college or pro.
Correct.
If I'm a Nevada soccer player, I cannot bet on the NFL.
Correct. What we would tell our student athletes every year is use baseball. You can't bet on the Little League World Series with the 12-year-olds, can't bet on the College World Series, can't bet on the professional Major League World Series, right? The entire sport is off limits. And that's been the way it's been forever. And if you got caught, whether you're a soccer player betting on a football game or whether you're a football player betting on a football game, it didn't matter. Same consequence, you were permanently ineligible to compete in collegiate athletics. 2 years ago, that changed. For the last 5 years, and I want to give the NCAA a lot of credit in this space, they've been providing us a ton of information, a lot of anonymous surveys that have come out that demonstrated that student athletes, and it's not just a student athlete deal, it's a college student deal, where you have a ton of students who are just participating in gambling. Sports gambling is a big epidemic at that space. So when you have anonymous surveys, you come back, we see the numbers, how many athletes are participating, and I think as a result of that, the NCAA said, hey, we need to update this policy to make it so that if you are a tennis player betting on a baseball game, it should not have the same consequence as a baseball player betting on his own baseball game, right? Or impact in his own game. So they have a variety of different penalties now, whether it's permanent ineligibility when you're throwing the game, to losing maybe a season or two, to maybe having to sit out a part of the season, to having to pay a fine. There's a whole breakdown of what that is, and that came into effect in 2023. I think everybody agreed that the punishments were a better fit for the type of breaking of the rules that was happening, but it also kind of gave this impression that we're kind of okay with this now.
So it was like more
normalizing
it. It was more nuanced, but it also normalized it.
Normalized it.
Okay, so when you've got Rozier in the NBA or Class A in the big leagues, deliberately throwing pitches a certain way or taking themselves out of ball games to win a prop bet, how does that make you feel when you're trying to keep college student athletes, within the rules? That can't be good if it's your charge to keep them compliant.
Yeah, it's a challenge. You want to treat them as adults. You understand that they're of age to do these things, and you try to demonstrate, that there's ethics and there's, doing things the right way and the integrity of the game. And when you're seeing professional athletes do this type of thing, it's a challenge. It's hard for us to say that to them, knowing that there's professionals who are doing this exact thing. Realistically, what you're seeing with a lot of these is the prop bet piece, right? Where we have the rationalization behavior that we have, whether it's a college athlete or a professional athlete, that, hey, I'm willing to earn some money to throw a ball in this particular inning, but I'm not throwing the game. It's not my intention to lose the game. I'm still going to do everything I can to win this game. I'm just going to ensure that this particular piece of this particular game goes a certain way. So whether it's helping myself, whether it's helping my family, my friends, whomever, we can come up a little bit in that space. That's a scary thing for a 19, 20-year-old kid to hear, right? You can understand why that might make sense. They can justify in their brains that's not fully formed yet that this is something that I can justify doing and still not throw the game. So it's a scary position to be in.
One thing we talked about in our class was the mentality, kind of the psychological aspect of how for certain athletes there's an appeal or there's that justification part where is it their ego? Because if you just look at the money involved, winning a prop bet, I think it was $58,000, I think, in one instance with a baseball pitch for Terry Rozier in the NBA. I mean, it's nothing compared to his career earnings.
Right.
So what's the psychology, as you understand it, behind that?
There's a couple different things there. One, it's the ego piece for sure. They think that they can do this, they can get away with it, and they're not going to get caught. That element's there. And particularly when you're talking about college athletes, I think that's very much there. There's the financial piece to it too, where you have professionals who are making a lot of money, but it came out that Rozier has about, I think it's an $8 million lien from the IRS right now.
Right.
Class A, I believe, has some business ventures that went south in the Dominican Republic. I mean, yes, they're millionaire athletes, but it's a scale thing. Like, they still have big problem issues when it comes to financials and things along those lines. So finances, wanting to help out. The loyalty piece of like wanting to take care of your family, would take care of your friends. Hey, I was blessed to be a great basketball player. My buddies who I grew up with didn't have that, but
right.
if I can help them come up a little bit in a way that's not going to compromise the outcome of a game, why wouldn't I do that? And just having that psychological mindset of being able to think that I can get away with this and I'm not going to get caught and everybody's going to end up being in a good spot as a result, I think you can try to justify that stuff.
Okay, last thought here. We are both blessed to work in sports. Yeah. And, that blessing is dependent upon sports retaining integrity. How worried are you?
Very. I mean, whether it's professional or college, I think the more we normalize that type of relationship with professionalized sports betting, legalized sports betting, the more we normalize it, the more we're asking for people to take that leap. As much as we don't love the idea of like permanently banning student athletes, it worked. It worked. And now we're in a position now where we're trying to tell them, you can do this, you can bet on this one, and you can't bet on this one. You can bet on your sport, but only if it's pro. You can bet on another sport, but there's so much nuance there, John, that I think what we're doing is we're just basically making it okay for these students to think that they can do this thing. And whether it's students, whether it's pros, whatever, the more we get comfortable with this, the more you see it on ESPN, the more you see all the banners and ads and how to do these things, it's just normalizing it. And it's going to be really hard going forward to not be seeing these types of cases every couple of months.
He's Joe Flores, Senior Associate Athletics Director, University of Nevada. We'll have the Japanese phrase of the week next on the Layup Line.
The following segment is sponsored by Bradley, Drendel, and Janae.
Welcome back in the Layup Line. Fazekas and Ramey with you. Nick, what's our Japanese phrase of the week?
Fun phrase of the week this week is going to be dozo. So last week we did daijobu, which means like it's cool, you kind of go.
Yeah.
Dozo is along the same kind of rhythm or kind of like line of it. I would say it's a tad bit more formal. I think daijobu is more kind of, I kind of told you last week it wasn't as formal, but dozo is kind of like, dozo, like go ahead, you can go in front of me, or kind of like dozo, you can take over for me. And I always thought that was kind of a helpful word for me. Something that translated easily kind of for English, kind of like go ahead, or you can take over, like I just said. But dozo is the one word that I thought was very beneficial for me while I did live in Japan for 12 years.
All right, dozo. Quickly, Nick, what was your prop bet story while you were with the Wolfpack? If you can tell us in like 60 seconds.
60 seconds. All right. So yeah, long before all this was alive and well, and there was DraftKings and everything like this, I can still vividly remember being downtown and I don't know, we were maybe out that night or something, and someone had kind of walked up to me and looked at me and said, hey, hey, Nick, are you aware that you know, there's a bet at, I think it was Grand Sierra, whatever it was called at the time, I'm drawing a blank, but it was basically like, there was a prop bet for my point total versus, I want to say, like the Chicago Bears point total. So I don't know what the point total was, didn't get that number. And I just remember it being whatever I was, 19, 20, 21 years old, whatever I was. It kind of just like flew over my head. But now that like all this stuff is kind of coming to the surface and guys are potentially fixing their prop bets and stuff like that, I just remember thinking to myself, like, wow, this was actually going on back when I was in college, long before prop bets really existed. But the Grand Sierra, or whatever the casino was named before that, kind of got ahead of this thing and did it long before this actually existed.
How did that make you feel in the moment? Were you just like, whatever?
I mean, it was just like, whatever. Like I said, it kind of just went straight over my head. Wasn't really even sure what it meant. But probably the ego in me was probably like, I'd probably bet on myself. I'm probably going to score a lot more points than the Chicago Bears are on that Sunday. But at the end of the day, it was nothing that I went into the game thinking about or anything like that. But yeah, that was kind of the first instance that I really had kind of got like a taste of like the sports betting culture that we're now kind of buried in right now.
All right, finally, we're going to have our first of hopefully many public shamings here on the Layup Line. Barstool, Nevada, we need more responsible posting from you. Shame on you. Credulous students said to me, my classmates, said that tailgating was canceled, and they referred to this posting on Instagram as the reason. The second panel of this shows an email from the dean of students saying that rules will be enforced regarding students and amplified music at the tailgating. This would be like saying driving is canceled because there are speed limits. Barstool, Nevada, be more responsible. You have a responsibility as an officer of the Court of Public Opinion. So we ask that you do better than that. Nick Fazekas, John Ramey, this has been the Layup Line. We'll see everybody real soon. Peace.